battle no ropes can hold. No ring. No referee. No rules.
Gentlemen, it's time.
No holds barred.
Welcome, everybody, to a very special, brand new podcast, No Holds Bar, hosted by myself, Gup. You can find me at Twitter at I am the Gup. And my hopefully co-host, if this goes well, if I make a good enough impression on him, Mr. Geoff Fienberg. You've known him very well from the Mayo interactions and Twitter and Phillips Rivers Love Child and all kinds of things. You know, I started this idea 2 or 3 months ago around in my head and wanted to bring a pod that was kind of outside my box, everybody's box. First I was like, do I do a solo pod or whatever? And that wasn't really me. I don't mind it, but I wanted to find someone that I felt was really in tune with a lot of things I like, and then get away from the structured, and I'm OCD as it gets, and I like structuring the pods and golf and staying on task, but I wanted to get just a pod out there that opens up and goes into all the things, everything, wrestling, sports, football, Rivers, Chargers, Cowboys, whatever's going on in that time period. So we, I got with JB and we talked about it, and then I got with Mr. Fienberg and asked if he'd be interested in at least giving this a run and seeing how it goes, and thankfully he said yes to give it a try. And so here we are on a beautiful Sunday night or Thursday night, one week away from the Masters. This a week from now, we'll be cussing and discussing who's leading first round leader at the Masters at Augusta, which is going to be awesome. We are 3 nights away from Wrestlemania, which for some of us in the industry is a special moment as well. We are 3 days removed from 29 years ago from Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior in Toronto, which I learned last week. My co-host, so I'm going to introduce now, was live and in person, so I was uber jealous. Mr. Fienberg, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing well. Jeez, you're flashing me right back to being a little boy. That night is the first ever time I went to that building ever. The building was brand spanking new. I hadn't even been to a Blue Jay game yet. But, Gup, I'm thrilled to do this with you. Happy to throw down. And, let's keep it real.
Man, so I didn't realize that. So it was it your first WrestleMania?
It was actually my second WrestleMania. Well, I was at WrestleMania 5 in Atlantic City at the Trump Hotel. Just to make a long story short, some business stuff my dad did. He had some WWE licenses for party supplies here in Canada. So he got comped all this stuff by them, and he took me. And I don't even think at 5 I was just there on a family trip. That makes any sense. I didn't go
Sure.
for the wrestling, but my dad went because he had some business to attend to, and I ended up there, and it kind of made an impact on me, but I was too young for it to really matter. I probably was asleep and just but 6 going with my dad, my uncle, my older cousins. That night made me a fan forever. I was hooked, even from Coco Beware in the opening match at 6. And then to rub in the jealousy, I was even lucky enough to be at 7. 5, 6, and 7. I know. I'm
wow.
Geez, yeah. I'm not even I'm 8, 9, 10 years old. I go to 3 WrestleManias in a row, all because my dad had these. Was doing business with WWE Canada at the time for some licensing. But 7, yeah, in LA, because we would go visit my grandparents. It was just when we were visiting that time of year on a spring break or whatever. That's when I was off to school. And WrestleMania was in LA, and I was in San Diego. So, that's it. And then from then on, hooked. VHS-ing all the bootlegging all the pay-per-views, figuring out the stacks of VHSs that would, I don't know, be burned. Going to rent videos and just renting wrestling tapes, and my parents and my sister hating me Like, you know, they just want to get an extra movie. And I'm like, they're renting like Survivor Series 1990. Yeah.
Hey, I mean,
Yeah.
you're speaking my language, and very much, you know, it's a unique deal on my background into it. Bittersweet type of history. So it's funny. And I want to get your background not only in that, but kind of what brought you. You know, we're gonna, you know, and just to make it clear, this is the reason why it's called No Holds Bar is we have a little script that I, you know, wrote out in general where I want to talk and want to go. This is unique in the sense that we have the Masters and WrestleMania at the same time, and this is the first pod. This isn't a wrestling pod. This isn't a Masters pod. This isn't a, you know, hopefully we try to, you know, we'll see the feedback. If it's great, we can go, you know, every couple of weeks, once a month, and just hit whatever's hot, you know, the NFL draft. That we both have enough interest in many different areas of the industry, not only golf, that I think it can work and be a fun release, at least for me, and I hope Geoff as well, because we both grind hard in the industry that most of you know us from, being you know, daily fantasy and betting golf. But, you know, so my mom will tell you that, you know, there's like, you know, I never had a father per se. I had a biological father, obviously, but didn't know him much. But there was three things I got from him. One was he absolutely loved wrestling, and that's where I first got started as a baby. Two, he loves snakes, which I love snakes. I own a snake. I have snakes tattoos. That's my deal. And then three, my eyes. I guess my eyes are identical to him, and she can see anything in my eyes, and always look to my father. And, you know, I'm 35. I knew him a total of about 3 years my entire life, and he passed away several years ago from cancer. So not much memory, but did have a little. But for whatever reason, I believe in the man above. And although that didn't work out with us, there are things that I got from him that are still important to me today for whatever reason. And wrestling was one of them. I mean, so I'm unique in the sense that I was born the year of WrestleMania 1. So it's easy for me to remember what WrestleMania was on, because 1983 was WrestleMania 1. That's the year I was born. And I was hooked from watching it with him, not really thinking. He always watched it apparently. And my mom and dad were married until I was about 2.5, 3. So I always was around it, just, you know, anecdotally with him. And then I continued to watch it, and I never stopped. And my first live was when I was 5 years old as well. She took me to see Hulk Hogan in Oklahoma City, and still very, very vaguely remember that. But I kind of talked about the other night with Hump, was my first stone cold memory was, you know, going to Cox with my mom and being able to get the Cox cable box. That's what we had, but we couldn't order on TV. I had to get a box, and getting WrestleMania 6. It was the first WrestleMania we bought. I know every match inside and out. I mean, it you know, start to finish. You said Coco Beware. I mean, it was, and I was hooked my whole life. Ironically, I kind of talked the other day, there was a gap post-college, I think you call it domestication, which, you know, is dead on, you know, kids, married, everything. From like 2004 to 2014-ish, I would watch WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble, probably Survivor Series every year, no matter what, but I didn't keep up with the storylines or anything in that 10-year period-ish. And then here, really what got me back into it was WrestleMania was coming to Dallas at AT&T Stadium, Jerry's World. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to buy my own tickets, and I bought, you know, 50-yard line suite tickets and got that bucket list moment. And I kind of got hooked back in, and from there I'm back in, all in, and watch it very regularly as much as I can. And now I got a 5-year-old who loves it. My 8-year-old's in and out, but likes it. And so when you get the kids involved, it really, you know, gives you a way to get into it and loving it. So back to the beginning, what, other than that, your, you know, for the guys that maybe knew or don't know you, where did you come from, your background, and then what kind of, you know, it doesn't have to be long, but what got you to where you are today as one of the key figures in the industry, very, very well respected. I met many guys today that, you know, one of the first questions is, what's Geoff really like? You know, he kind of spazzes a little bit on the Mayo show, and you know, and he goes, but I can tell he's, you know, and even a Don, he goes, you know, do you guys get along? I said, I without a doubt, you know, and I met you last year at the Honda when we were live, but and a little nervous, not nervous, but, anytime you're meeting people on Twitter, it's kind of like, how's this going to go? But, and when I said the other night on the pod, a brother from another mother, like we have a lot in common and respect you, no doubt, in the industry, and then your knowledge. And I tell people, I said, he's extremely sharper than he leads on, and maybe it's on purpose, maybe not. But you care, you're charismatic, your passion is what attracted me to you. And Mayo's the same way, work ethic, all that. I love both you guys so much, and we talk all the time about that. But what got you, and we'll go through Chargers, Phillip Rivers, and all that, but just in general, how did you land on this, where you are today?
Honestly, I had just been I worked at a bunch of places here in Toronto. Toronto, I guess to people unfamiliar, is kind of like, Canada. It's kind of like the New York or LA. Like all the media outlets are just sort of here.
Gotcha.
Especially like for sports media, they're all sort of out of Toronto, in this area. So I just worked at a place called The Score for years. That's where I worked out of college, university, I don't know, whatever people call it. Just got there as a summer intern, turned that into part-time, turned that into full-time. And then from there, I worked at a place called TSN.
Yep, familiar with that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the bigger,
sure,
like our ESPN here in Toronto. I did a lot of stuff for their radio for a lot of years. And I don't know, I never knew Pat, but I ended up from TSN, I ended up at the Fantasy Network, which was a startup that I'm not really sure how they exist today. I know they do some radio stuff because my man Gabe is always killing it for them, but whatever. So I met up with, and I don't know, I just met Pat. And we just hit it off.
Did y'all meet there?
Yeah, that was really the first time that we met. We kind of just hit it off. And listen, like, as you guys know, like, I love all sports. I love golf, but I don't really have any buddies that I could like talk golf with. The buddies that I could play golf with.
Right.
There were guys like I could talk golf with.
Sure.
I could talk like, Tiger and like Phil.
Right.
Or like, like the top guy, that I'm sort of familiar with. But
they don't want to deep dive into Abraham Answer or Joaquin Neiman or Ryan Armour.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. And this is, a handful of years ago. And I don't know, just sort of hit it off with Pat. It's like the only guy I knew that I could sort of talk golf with, as silly as that might like sound.
Sure.
And this is sort of like on the cusp of, DFS golf was just starting like to really gain some traction. And Pat was doing his show. And I was, for the most part, I've done a lot of stuff behind camera,
right,
producing and
sure.
But yeah, so that was sort of where I'll like I was doing through my jobs in the industry. Well, you sort of watch enough, you do enough, you sort of like see how the guys on, they act. They just sort of,
So where did you start? I get it from how, when did you start what I would call we can call it industry talk, but handicapping, football is probably one thing. And I know you're a big football handicapper as I am. And I think we're both in the super contest in Vegas at times. But the golf, like when did you start analyzing and betting golf? Had you always done that, or was that something that came after you and Pat started getting more into it?
No, it was something I did, but not as consistent as I did it with Pat. Like before we started doing the show, I wasn't even betting golf every week. I would just like most weeks I would, but maybe this week it'd be like, next week's like the major.
Right.
I'll just like take this one off or whatever, wasn't following it. I remember even having to do the show, Pat, like, I don't make my bets till Wednesday. Like, you want me to come in here on Tuesday? Like, I'm still, like, rubbing last week off. Like, I'm still, like, the scars, like, now it's, like, by Monday at, like, 11 a.m., I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm ready to do the show. Like, but yeah, and Pat is the man, and any credit that you give me, I'm just lucky enough to sit, at a table from Pat, for the most part. But, yeah, I think just like, we met each other that year, and it was probably just in like February or March. I think we just, we would talk golf off air, and I said it a few times. The first time I actually met Pat, I called Jason Day winning. I think it was his first of the 2 match play wins in his career. So
gotcha.
The win the year beat dude we saw, and that actually happened. Like, come in on Monday, Pat's like, "What the fuck?" Like, okay,
yeah.
And Pat's like, I think, doing just articles for DFS golf. I don't think he's doing video. And then I think he started doing the DFS golf show, and he did it with like the Fantasy Golf Insider guys, who were probably the first, I want to say.
Sure.
At least I could be wrong. Maybe there's somebody I'm forgetting, but when like fantasy golf first came onto my radar, it was, I think it was those guys, Geoff and Zach, who I think are both good guys. And they, the one year that me and Pat weren't doing a show together, they sort of threw me a lifeline. So I always have a respect, for them in that. But going back to that first year, I think me and Pat just did it was the last major, was the PGA Championship. It's like, let's just go in. Let's talk about it. So we did it. And I kind of think that was popular enough that come next, golf season, he's like, let's do a weekly show. And that's sort of how that, came about. And I don't know. I don't think we were pretty early. We were pretty early. And it's humbling when a lot of people now, there are a lot of shows, but they're like, I don't know. You got to start somewhere. And a lot of people credit us for sort of just giving them the motivation. Because you look at me, you look at Pat, just Pat's really good at what he does.
Sure.
But, just a couple guys that like it and talk passionately about it. So a lot of people figured, why not? Let me give it a try.
And I found you and Pat at the same time ish. I was well into betting before anything fantasy, other than old school, traditional fantasy football leagues and blah, blah, blah. I used to watch the league on FX all the time. And that's kind of the first time I ever heard of DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever one they had on that show. And I was like, what is daily fantasy? And then one day, so I was this is way too fucking crazy, but I'm in Toronto during the 2016 Masters, and we're doing an acquisition on many dealerships up there at the time, and obviously we know Willett wins, right? And I'm like, and I'm new to Twitter. I'm not new to Twitter, but I had just started following people that followed people that followed people to see daily fantasy type stuff. And I see people retweeting this Geoff Fienberg guy that called Willett to win. I'm like, bull fucking shit. No one fucking calls Danny fucking Willett to win the Masters. And I had seen enough of the people that are fucking fake, and they come on and I live bet this guy here, go fuck yourself. And I just got tired of that. And I instantly was turned off of the Twitter. I almost exited Twitter because I got tired of the people that were fake and don't have accountability, don't tell you what they're risking, don't tell you what they want. And it mainly comes back to my background, and everybody knows it today, of being, I document everything. It's not because I'm trying to prove myself. I don't have to do that anymore. And nor did I then. I'm OCD as it gets. My wife will tell you, JB will tell you, but they will all tell you I'm like literally not like funny OCD. Like I literally am OCD, like technical, like medical, like I could be diagnosed with it all day. And so I go into you and I start reading your timeline. I'm like, oh, I got, I think y'all were doing some kind of pod or something at the time. I don't remember what. I believe it was a pod in some form. I don't really know how or what. And I backtrack it, and I was like, oh shit, like he really they've been talking about this shit since like November, December. And then I start, obviously anything with you was tied to Mayo, vice versa. And I track it all and I was like, wow. I was like, how the fuck do you fall on Danny Willett? And it intrigued me. And so then I'm like, to the point you just made, I'm like, well, fuck, I can do that. Like what strokes gained? Like I hit the ball and pray to God it winds up in green grass. Like that's how I played golf at the time. And then I'm like, there's numbers behind this deal. And I found it and I got it on the PGA Tour website. And then I just start going to work, right? I'm Moose, but I'm doing it on my own because I don't really understand all the platform, and I'm scraping and I have my own database and I'm building and I'm learning and I'm educating myself. And I paid 2 years tuition on DraftKings. Just got murdered trying to understand what golf and everything was, and I'm building databases and models. And I have no clue who Moose is or Moose and at that point, I don't even know that people know what a spreadsheet is. Other than where I am today is because of my skills and that, because of my real career. And so I use those skills. I'm like, I can figure out these numbers and stuff. And then I was like, oh, there's an advantage here to figure out great value in betting. It's not that you think Danny Willett's going to fucking win it in November. You just go, this dude's on fire. He's winning it. He's doing this, he's doing that, and at the value, he's worth the bet. And that's what we preach today. But 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't comprehend it all. So there's not a day that goes by that anybody asks me, had I not ran across that whole deal and you guys, no way I would be where I am without the two of you. And I always tell Mayo that and you that. Now, do people say, does he help you out? Does Mayo get? And I was like, Mayo's never done anything for me, like physically. I was like, I give him respect because it was something to gear for, and he was a groundbreaker, and he was an OG in my world, is what I call it. And I said, everything I've done has been me, but he's given the platform for some. And then once I kind of had a couple big hits and bets and all that, he was grateful enough to invite me on and got to know you guys really well. But the process, as I call it, was developed right then and there at that Masters with the collapse of Spieth and Willett winning it and falling upon you, which was really funny because then I find out you guys are in Toronto. Like I was probably literally, 10 minutes from you guys right there, which is the first time I was ever in Toronto in my life was during that Masters. So it was just full circle and crazy how that all comes about. And people I know always wonder what's the background, how does that work out? And then moving forward, your guys are dead on. I do want to get to a couple of things, and then we're going to go right into some wrestling stuff. And then back to the one thing I want to ask is, because I don't know this answer. We've talked many times, but is there any analytical stuff to your process, or is it all you see with your eyes, you watch a lot, you understand it, you understand golf, you understand the process, you I don't want to say it's all gut feel because I think that would be unfair to you. Is it a combination of it all, or do you go into Fantasy National type deal? Do you have your own deal to look at numbers? Like I know what Mayo does. I've been around that environment. I'm similar in a way. What is your process when you wake up either Sunday evening as the tournament's over, Monday? How do you find where your value is, other than I know you're hardcore and you watch them all and you know how they're playing in their form and course history and you're an encyclopedia, but do you do the numbers at all or no?
Okay. I'm just lucky enough that I can take everything I take in and then, bounce anything I want to off Pat. A lot more, maybe off air than even on air.
Sure.
And then I get there or whether it's like Paul and, the stat boards are sort of like spoon fed, to view the numbers. And I look at other people's models. I'm not smart enough to sort of run my own. And at this point, I'm not ignorant enough to ignore that stuff because it actually really is, beneficial because I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. And I'm smart enough to know that perception isn't reality.
Well said. Very well said.
Because it's easy to make it that way, and it's easy, because Golf Channel shows us, the guy take 5 putts and he misses like 4 of them. Does he suck, or he just sucked on like the 5 putts that like we saw? Yep.
It's
sort of Yeah, and everyone, I like to think, watching this and, being inside, your network is, long past any needing of an introductory lesson
Sure.
like that. But I just like to spoon it all in. I would say I used to joke about, my process or even, doing the show. I don't know, like, how do you put this? It's like, I don't know, I like a hot dog, but if you went inside the factory and saw how it was made,
yeah,
you're like, I don't think I ever want a freaking hot dog ever again, bro. Like, you'd probably be scarred for life. And I almost would use that analogy with a lot of, producing a lot of shows that, like, the people, watching or listening, they have no idea, like, what sort of gong show we're going through, like, behind the air to get it up or to put the content, up, but, they just see it and, they can, take it in. And,
no, you're dead on.
And, me and Pat at this point, like, we do the show Monday morning. Pat is, I could never praise enough credit on him. So it's either like I keep doing that with hyperbole or just like stop and you get the picture. But, he's not, he hasn't gotten to where he's gotten without a reason. He wants that show done Monday so it can be up and it can be, out there because this shit has a shelf life. It's not like, will Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame sort of evergreen shit. By the time they tee off, it's over. Like, that shit's dead. He puts 100%. A lot of time and effort, as do you guys. You do these shows, you fucking work your ass off to get them out there, but they live for 40 hours. They're not like a comedy fucking sketch or something. That's just, and you got to do another one, the next night or your emergency nines and everything. And you do that emergency 9 and it literally has a shelf life of
12 hours, maybe
12, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
And I had a conversation tonight when we were exiting the course with Adon, and he'll laugh at that because I learned that he's I
know, and he's tried to like force the pronunciation on me, like phonetically in like chats, because I love the guy, and every time I think I go on there with Pat, we both butcher it. So,
and I called him Adon. Today was my first day meeting him. I called him Adon, and then like 10 minutes later, he introduced himself to someone else, and I heard him say Adon, and I was like, wait a second, and I was like, wait, is it Adon or Adon? He was like think Adonis, and immediately I think of the wrestler type term, and I was like, okay, I can remember that, and I was like, sorry, I apologize. He goes, no, most people don't get it because if you're looking at Twitter, you see A and Don, and you kind of put together, but. You're dead right, and the conversation I had with him was there's a fine line between MIT deep dive analytical price value to R squared roots of top 20 bets to I open the book on Monday and go who the hell do I think is going to win this week. So there's a wide range there, and the one thing that I enjoy about you guys, and which is my similar path, is that I'm very analytical and I do love the numbers, but because of my background in sports, and then even more so my recent background in golf and being competitive in golf, not great, but I do play. That golf is golf. Like, it isn't 11 men on 11 men out there, and if the left tackle's wife the night before is ripping his ass because baby girl needs some diapers or some shit, he can still go out there and block whoever needs to block. Golf, that happens, your mind might be screwed up and you're pissed off, or you're wondering what mama's doing or who mama's screwing or whatever. If your game isn't on mentally in golf, you could be done, and there's no data in the world that's going to show you that. So I treat everything I do with the respect of it's still golf, right? So I'm not going to go all in on anybody on any given time because you can't predict it on any given round, let alone a tournament. We try the best, and I think some of us are better than most to set ourselves up every week in and week out, but you simply don't know. And so I fall in the middle. I run all the numbers. I have a database. I have rankings. I have deep dive. I try to set myself up the best I can, knowing that it's very likely to fail that weekend because it's golf. It just I preach in the community that the biggest deal for me with golf is to have at bats, especially with DFS. Like you and I know Mayo's the same way. You want to have an at bat every week to try to win that contest that week, and because you just can't predict it all. And so if you go all in and you don't, then 3 weeks later when you may have had the at bat, you don't have it because you've lost all your money. But most people don't do that. They don't do it correctly, and they try to say, I got the nuts this week and I'm playing the country club for the first time ever because I know who's going to win this. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, don't, I won a shit ton of money last year. I won more money, almost in DraftKings than I make in my career, and I have a damn good career. When I got to January, I reset up. I moved my bankroll up about 3x from last year, and I went to work. Like, I'm not playing, 10 times more than I was a year ago because I know what it is, and I want to grind back. And I'm down this year. My community knows that I'm down right now on the year, but I'm so far up from last year that it's insignificant. I just know I got to keep grinding and wait for my week to hit. And I think I know you guys are like that. And that's why I respect both of you. And we never talk about dollar amounts or what you're betting or what you put in DraftKings. It's irrelevant because I know you know the process. And I know Mayo knows the process, and I don't have to worry about it, right? And so that's what I appreciate. With that, I got to know the Phillip Rivers story. I got to know I've never seen someone as I'm pretty passionate about some things, and I'll get into it as we keep going. But I thought it was a joke at first, and then I got really to know you, and I was like, no, this is real. This is and I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and I'm one that can sit up and say, hey, I've seen more shit losing seasons for Dallas Cowboys than I've ever seen Super Bowls. I happened to be prime when they won them. OU football, right? I played there. I was a preferred walk-on, then I transferred. But in the 90s, I watched Tommy Fraser, beat our ass by 70, and I was in that stadium when there was 20,000 people there, not 100 day in and day out. And I watched more shit OU football for 10 years than before the Bob Stoops era came. And now you got all these Fairweather fans and they're flying flags and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, you weren't there when not that I hate them, but it does bug me some because I was an OU fan before OU. I mean, I didn't know OU was great. I knew OU as, John Blake and Howard Schnellenberger, and we got our ass kicked in. So when it became good, I was proud of it, but then it kind of catches fire, and I don't even really talk about it a lot other than people know I'm an OU fan because most people think you're a fake fan. I'm like, well, I don't want to get in that argument. I know you may be the biggest Phillip Rivers fan out there, but you're one of them, if not. Tell me the story. How, first of all, did you become a Charger? I assume, this is an assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, that you are a Chargers fan and Phillip Rivers fell into that. If it's the other way around, let me know. But what's the San Diego connection and background and then the Rivers?
Okay, I am a Chargers fan.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
Phillip Rivers happened to fall into that vortex.
There you go.
Being a Chargers fan, I've told the story a few times, but it's quite simple. I live here in Toronto. We don't have an NFL team. A lot of people, I guess, have adopted the Bills because geographically, they're about less than 2 hours from here. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, I went to go visit my grandfather in San Diego, my grandparents.
Okay.
So they moved out there. So for Christmas holidays or March, or spring break holidays, I go visit them, but mainly in this instance on Christmases. And my grandfather liked it, and my dad's youngest brother, ended up moving out there with them. Long story short, when I turned 10 years old and I realized I love football, I like it more than hockey. I like it, the Blue Jays were the shits when I was 10 years old. So I love them for life. They got that currency in me. But,
Joe Carter, Oklahoma boy. His sister was my elementary teacher. Funny story, but yeah, he was Oklahoma. Go ahead.
So there it is. So anyhow, I just liked when it was time to I realized I liked football, and then it's I don't know, and have a team. But I had all this I had Chargers hats, I had Chargers shirts, and I don't know. There it is. Just started being a Charger fan, and anything in my life. If I if I'm interested in it, my interests aren't many, but if it is one of them, I am like full bear into it.
Ricky Fowler.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I guess that.
Yeah.
The Ricky thing, that's a whole other side conversation. But I don't know. Like before,
So were you watching the draft? Were you watching the draft when they drafted Manning, Eli?
Yeah. I was real pissed. But I just quickly want to interrupt to say before, it wasn't that long ago, but when me and Pat started doing the show, I had to people needed to be convinced that Dustin Johnson isn't a loser. That was a thing.
Really?
Thing. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Before,
Yeah.
And there was Chambers Bay, and so he became an even bigger loser.
Yeah.
But before, and people would argue he's probably still hasn't lived up to close to enough, but that's a different conversation for a different time. So yeah, I was watching that draft. I was watching the Ryan Leaf drafts. I watched all the drafts. Yeah, I don't know. I hated Eli. I still kind of really hate Eli.
So were you a Rivers fan? Were you hoping they were going to draft him pre-draft?
No, I wanted them to draft Roethlisberger. But
really?
I didn't know anything.
Okay.
I knew what I knew, but I knew.
Yeah. No, I got you. Yeah,
the guy at home watches a bit, and by the read-ups, I thought Roethlisberger was the guy. And Rivers, by all accounts, they just kept falling back to Rivers. I think they coached him in the Senior Bowl, and Schottenheimer and the guys there just fell in love with him. No, I didn't. I wasn't really partial to anybody. And I didn't feel this way about I don't know. Maybe it was the first time he got to the podium and spoke, and you hear him, and you're like, holy shit, he's the real fucking deal. And I love the guy so much because I love that team so much, and he cares. I think he cares more than I do. I know it sounds so weird, and people the me or the we or the eyes. I don't give a shit, but I don't know.
I like that you weren't it wasn't like he was your college fanboy and he happened to fall on your team. I like that. Had it been Eli or had it been Roethlisberger, whoever it had been, I'm fairly confident you would have backed as long as he was the starting quarterback. Obviously, he's been there forever. So, I don't know your age exactly. I know we're fairly close, but were you a Chargers fan when they played San Francisco in the Super Bowl?
I was at the game, Gup.
Wow. Man, you just dropping knowledge. I mean, you just go everywhere. I'm glad I'm your friend. So the next time something shit real big goes, I'm gonna be like, well, Fienberg's gonna be there, so I can find a way in. But
if the Chargers were there, yeah, that is that. My dad, as I mentioned, my grandfather was in San Diego, and my dad's youngest brother, and
I fucking hated the 49ers. So obviously, I was
looking back on it. I was told it was one of the easiest tickets to get. They didn't pay a lot for it. I remember we decided the Thursday of the game we're gonna go. Yeah, they were 20-point underdogs. I was a baby though. Yeah. And I just I don't have a ton of my memories are of more fan fest that day. To be perfectly honest, I'm a 10-year-old boy. I still got the shirts. But
was it Harbaugh and the Colts they beat in the AFC Championship game, or Steelers?
No, it was the Steelers. They knocked out the Neil O'Donnell pass down at the 2-yard line. I remember everyone was so happy. I was happy. Yeah. Oh, that was good. No, awesome. They got their ass kicked. But I remember that the stealth bombers flying over. That's something I'll never, ever
forget.
Ever. Ever. That's as ingrained in me as the day my daughter was born. As weird as you'll never forget seeing those stealth fighter bombers fly over you. I'm not talking. You know which ones I'm talking about.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I know. 100%. Yep. Been there,
Yeah, that was when that was like, I don't know, they were new and they were fresh then. So that was that, and it was a Tony Bennett, Patti LaBelle halftime, and the Chargers just got worked.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, but they showed that 49er team, that was an all-star team in and of itself. People talk about like the superstars on it, but you go through every level of that team was insane. Was insane. They beat the shit out of your Cowboys. I want to say
They did.
That AFC title game.
Yep.
Or sorry, NFC.
Yep.
NFC game. And then you guys obviously went back the next year and beat that Pittsburgh team that we.
Yep. Larry Brown. Larry Brown with the picks. Yep.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people kind of, and it was not my fault. I don't mind it because we're about to get into it and it's probably going to get really good. But, the wrestling was kind of the thing. We're going to get there, and that's a big passion. Obviously, this is a big intro, and this isn't going to be every pod, but I wanted people that are new from both sides and know the deep down and all that. The last thing on this kind of intro football-ish, and then we'll kind of go through wrestling and the Masters and all that. I know you're a big Rivers fan, and I will tell you one of the hardest things I've ever watched in my life, especially playing football for 17 years of my life, all the way, through college, and having symptoms and some of the stuff even today that I see in the video when I watch Seau, the documentary, and my wife being scared because she knows some of those things can happen, maybe haven't happened with me, maybe never will, but I had a similar path there. I know Rivers was your guy, but was Seau a big guy for you? Was he late? Was he? I know LT was, and I saw you at the Hall of Fame, and that's amazing that you got to go there, and I loved LT, but Junior. Watching that deal was a very emotional moment in my life watching it. And I don't know if you've seen it. I assume you have. Hadn't even talked to you about it. But that's why it's no holds bar. It's emotional for me to watch. It was hard to watch with my wife, but tell me, was he big in your career? Or was that kind of, you came on late in his career?
No, he was everything. He's like the reason I'm like a fan.
Yep.
I think he was like it. Because when it first hit me, he was like the guy. He was my guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was my guy. Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't watched the doc because it just would, it just would hurt. Like,
yep.
I'm a very, like, I don't mean this as in like and I know like real mental illness is like a real thing. And I like say this in jest, but I'm like a mental midget. I don't like to be out of my comfort zone. Sure. Like that. Like I'm on an airplane, like, I don't know. Like I just don't like to be out of my like equilibrium. I don't know. I'm not OCD like that, but I don't know. I just don't. And that like I don't like scary movies because I don't know. I don't find entertainment in being scared, and I don't find entertainment in being real sad. And I know you wouldn't watch that Sale documentary to because there's a story and there's a truth and they're trying to tell you something. But it would just, I don't know. I wouldn't be able. It would hurt too much. I couldn't. Sale was my guy, and my trip to Canton before LT would have been for him.
Sure.
If he was alive.
Yep.
I didn't feel I wanted to go see and I think his daughter is fantastic.
Amazing.
I think she's fantastic. I truly say that, but I didn't want to go to not see him or to see him, so.
Have you seen the Will Smith movie? Did you watch it at all?
Yeah. That
yeah.
because, they put like a Hollywood drama
spin
on it. It's far less real. And I remember the day I like went home from work the day Sale killed himself.
No,
I was fucking I was fucking rattled.
what's crazy is when it
shook me.
Yeah, when it happened, obviously there wasn't as much knowledge as what I know now. I obviously pay close attention, being my background, and for people that haven't seen it, if you go watch it or like, and I didn't play in the NFL. Don't get me wrong there, but it's eye opening, and I've been on the sideline with teammates that didn't know where the fuck they were and would go right back out there and play football. I seen it with my own eyes. One of my best friends in college did it. I saw him knocked out 6, 7, 8 times in a 4-year period. I've had concussions. My cousin has had concussions. In full circle, I'm similar to you. Like, I don't like being out of my comfort zone in a while. And really what grounded me and helped me a lot was my son being diagnosed with autism, which is obviously a undefined, we don't know what's going on in the human brain type illness. And I don't use the word illness because my son's not handicapped. He's not ill. He's functional. He's severe, but it caused me to look into the brain and some more stuff. And I'm not very smart to go do all that. But, watching those shows and then looking back on the shit that I went through, my teammates, and this is a small level to go, the only thing I can say is I'm happy that if my sons decide to go down that path, the protection and stuff that's there today is a mile times bigger than what it was when I played football. So people ask me, would I let my kids play? Sure. I don't. I stand by. It's so hard for me because I would not be where I am today in this seat with this career, with this family, with my success without the game of football. It wouldn't happen. Like, I grew up poor. I grew up single mom. My mom put food on the table, closed my back, got me to school, got me to college, did everything she had to do in an amazing job. But the game of football gave me a scholarship, gave me 2 degrees. My first interview, the executive that interviewed me, son, played baseball at the college I did, and the whole interview was talking about sports. And then I got the job, and it was the same job I kept for my entire career until last year. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't respect the game of football. It's everything to me. I would not change a single thing about playing it. I love it. And you watch the documentary with Junior, and it hit me hard because Junior was the same damn way. And I wouldn't have been, I'm not saying I wasn't a fan. I love Junior, but nothing like you. He's a Charger guy, but he loved the game like I did. And that's where I respected him. And then to see where it ended, it was hard. I'm glad I watched it with my wife because it was a bonding moment for us. I couldn't imagine if I was you, and I'm not shocked you hadn't watched it, because you have a tie there with that team. So for me, it would be like, whatever, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, something like that, that would go through that and have that. That'd be hard for me to watch it. So I get it, but a lot of respect for him, and then obviously I know your background with it, and have a lot of respect for that. Not to bring the pod down on that, but it's an important subject, and it's something that I wanted to ask you because I knew how close you were to that organization. In a brighter note, if we try to transition, Wrestlemania, right? So the greatest, the Super Bowl of a sports entertainment, if we want to call it that, product that has meant a lot in my lifetime. As far as, I'm not a big soap opera, or I'm not a big show guy. I try to watch some, but wrestling was always that. It was weird because of the connection to a father I never had, that it was always like I was meant to watch it, and I continued to watch it, and I just loved it. And then my wife came along, and she didn't hate it, right? So she was just like, she was a soap opera person. So she was like, I kind of look at it as a male soap opera in a way. Is it fake? Man, you can call it fake. I call it, like a soap opera, right? There's some stuff scripted out, and there's things that change in a minute, and we'll get into one of them, that happen. But if you go into it understanding the entertainment value of what it brings and just enjoy it, it's good for a lot of people if they want to do it. Now, you and I are very similar in age. We grew up in one of the best eras in life, in my opinion, meaning the Nintendo came out when we were kids. Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, we'll get into here in just seconds. NWO versus WWF at the time, but the Monday Night Wars, the Hulk Hogan, the Stone Cold, the Rock, just among sport after sport after sport, we've seen some of the greatest that are still considered the greatest of all time in our eras already at mid 30s, right? And so it's amazing. But when you think of wrestling in general, and when you were growing up, what did it mean to you on a weekly, daily, your friend basis? Was it just something to go to? Was it life? Was it, just, and it can be quick, but just what was wrestling to your life, all the way through high school, let's say?
Well, I guess it was like different stages, but like those early stages are like Saturday morning and Superstars.
Yep.
And then, like, being at, like, sleeping at my older cousin's place, and they're, like, staying up to our Saturday night's main event. Like, that's the first time I ever saw it. I didn't even know that show existed.
Yep.
Yeah, and then, like, going to, like, Maple Leaf Gardens, see, like, Hogan versus Perfect, and then, like, seeing the Earthquake, like, squish Hogan. And I wasn't, like, old enough to appreciate or even watch, any, like, Andre versus Hogan, but he was a little boy in that Hogan, and like, yeah, Warrior, and that like was just a game changing. And the gimmicks that are so made fun of today, like they were real to me, damn it,
sure.
to play off those gimmicks. Like I was scared of Papa Shango. Like original Undertaker had me shook. Like that, so as people make fun of it, I look at it through the lens of like the 7, 8, 9-year-old boy that like I was, and it was fucking, it was scary. And I get it. I'm not an idiot. You grow up, you realize like it's fake, but it's performance art, and it's got a story, and a lot of episodes are shit, just like your favorite shows. So I don't know. You compare it. I get it. I get people that like don't like it. And it's also one of these like funny things where it's, I don't know about you, Gut, but it's like also something that I don't know, you don't like always wear it. Like, there used to be time like, do you like wrestling? Like if you like low pro about it, like, oh, like, yeah, we both like wrestling. This wasn't something they shared. And then a couple other friends like it. And I remember my dad like would, someone that he worked with would like tape the pay-per-views, and he'd come back. I couldn't wait to get home from school on Monday, like see the pay-per-views. And I don't know, it was just I still like it today, but I buy into that stupid hyperbole that they sell now that you get to experience with, your son. So I don't think, as I called stupid hyperbole, but it's like real. It's, I don't know. It's,
no, I was so desperate at times that I remember one of my friends in elementary school where, this is like WrestleMania 9-ish. Like he would put his phone up to the TV and just so I could listen to it, because I couldn't afford to buy the pay-per-views or anything at that time. Right. My mom could, we just didn't. Like WrestleMania 6 was it. The next one I bought, which we'll get right into in a second, was WrestleMania 10. And so any other pay-per-view, I'm like, listen, he got to buy them all. So I was super jealous. And so I'd listen to him and my walls at my house, I had every wrestling magazine, all the wrestlers. I had the Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior buddy dolls, and I'd wrestle the hell out of them. I had the belts, my walls were littered with Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, Stone, all over, I'd staple them up just like a girl with, Jonathan Taylor Thomas or some shit, that's what it was like. But that's what it was to me. And it meant a lot, only that it was just kind of like that. I don't know why. It's hard to explain if you're not into it. And obviously people have made it this far and now we're into the juice. They're obviously like wrestling. So or they love us a lot. So that'd be great as well. But So we get past the Bushwhackers and the leads, and I can go on and on. We can talk about the Freebirds. We can talk about the Rock and Roll Express. We can talk about, the Mid-South Wrestling. I mean, I now have unlike you, my mom would drop me off on Friday evenings at Blockbuster and come back 2 hours later, and I'd have 19 wrestling tapes to go home and watch all weekend, right? I mean, that's what I even then I wanted to educate myself on the history I didn't know. And so that's how I know so much of the old stuff, because I watched every single tape I could find my hands on. Back to Halloween Havoc in the 80s with Great Muta and Sting. And I mean, and this is shit I had no idea at the time, but I'd go back and watch it and it's still entertaining. But to keep this pod under, 3 hours so people actually may download it and listening to us, let's fast forward past that and get to what I would call the greatest single segment in the history of wrestling, which was the Monday Night Wars. I'm going to assume, but I'll just ask and then we can kind of go into it, were you keyed in day in, week in and week out as so Bash of the Beach 96, Hogan Flips, NWO's created with Scott Hall and Razor Ramon, Kevin Nash, which was Razor Ramon and Diesel. Were you ingrained then in that era and then watched what today is still some of the greatest ratings? It is the greatest ratings era of all time in wrestling, and the back and forth and the Degeneration X, and obviously, I mean, I got New World Order shirt on tonight. Was that you at that time, or were you? I don't know. I'm just trying to get the era. Were you then there and in it, or no?
Yeah, but I was for a while still pure WWE. Because it was all I knew, and honestly, Gabe, up in Canada, we didn't really have the channel, the same network. TSN owned the rights to WWE and to WCW, so they weren't airing simultaneously either.
Oh, that sucks.
You know what I mean? So it's different. They would both air, but they weren't airing against each other. Or eventually they did, and you could flip, but. Growing up, the only WCW we ever really got was the TB, not even the TNT, the TBS Saturday morning show.
No, yeah, I got you. Yep.
Which was I think from the one that they filmed on the Universal lot now that they you look back on.
Sure.
Yeah. So Toronto specifically was, I mean, you were in the, so you were almost in WCW country, but Toronto specifically was a huge Vince McMahon's dad territory. The whole Northeast up here, and even going back to when we were kids, it was hard to even see. My grandmother would come home from a trip to Florida with wrestling dolls, and she'd bring me these WCW ones. I'd look at them they were I didn't even know who these people were.
That's funny. I mean, it's interesting to hear that, because that's a perspective I didn't know. Because obviously, whichever was hot, I would watch live and I would record the other and then immediately watch it, right? And so I was too a WWE guy wholeheartedly. I wasn't a big WCW guy. I'd flip over every once in a while, but when the crossover of all crossovers, when Hogan leaves WWE and goes to WCW, it obviously attracted me to that and made WCW big. Obviously, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were huge in WWE as well. So when they moved over there and the NWO was created, it was a game changer, right? I mean, it was historic, right? And it still is. There's times I'm watching today and I go back to why they are afraid to go back to some of that kind of, even if it's internal, because they don't really have any true competition today, but that back and forth, even, let's go WWE, right? So even in WWE, you had the Nation of Domination. You had all these guys that would battle each other and have great storylines, and it's just lacking today. And I don't know why. Do you have an opinion on where the state is today on that stuff? Or do you think they're such a monopoly that they don't feel like it matters? But I do think some of the stuff they've done in the last month or so that they're fully aware of, people will eventually, there's too much fucking knowledge out there with Netflix and streaming and stuff that if they don't gain the market share, they'll lose it, right? People will just go, I'm tired of this shit and move on, right? I got other options than to sit here and watch the same boring shit over and over and over. What's your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always see I'm torn because I could imagine being like our age in the early 90s and thinking this is horrible, but did the 8-year-old, 10-year-old boys, like, are they loving it? And you tell me, your kid eats it all up. So I don't know. Has it always just been like this? And we just see it through the lens of like our adolescence. And I know we were getting older. I was still in high school though, like the very beginning of high school during the Monday Night Wars, and it was everything, man. The day after those shows, like if you came to school and you didn't watch, it was like you were like the outcast.
Absolutely.
And wrestling was normally like, if you liked wrestling, now you're kind of like the outcast. But yeah, I loved it. Even the teachers, man, like my homeroom teachers, like we were breaking it down. Like everybody watched. Like who got stunned, who got like.
Well, and that's a fair point. I agree with you. My kid will watch it and he doesn't comprehend is it great, but I mean he's watching, guys that he's fallen in love with and all that. I will say there is not Stone Colds today or the Rocks. I mean, those are once in an era type guys.
Or, when a tag team breaks up, it doesn't feel like when and I know this is like the pinnacle, but
Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty.
Like, to me, that's literally like if the Chargers missed like a 32-yarder to win a playoff game tomorrow, that's like the heartache I felt when those guys broke up. I don't know whether it was because the tassels and the neon and the hair and the top flying moves, but even like 9-year-old boy, the Rockers were the fucking shits. Like they're laughed at in the scheme of things of history, but to me they're one of the greatest tag teams of all time, man.
Oh, I mean that was the biggest. Yeah, I mean, I remember today, right through the glass, like it was last night, and things like that is where I'm like, I wonder if there's things happening today that's like that, and I just don't know it.
Yeah,
but but I get tired of fucking Brock Lesnar wrestling 3 times a year, and it's normally not a very good match. I was pleasant. I think I was messaging you. I was pleasantly surprised with Ronda's in-game or in-ring performance as she continues to grow. Like she's had some really damn good matches. Like she's not, I don't know if she's going to leave after WrestleMania 35. We'll get into that to a second, but she's grown. Like I think she cares and she's showing in the ring and she cares about her performance, which I respect, right? I respect the effort on her part, and it's totally different than Brock, that no one really cares. I mean, it's the same boring ass Suplex City, no anything to the match. I mean, I'm talking, WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon ladder match type shit. That shit, I can rehearse that in my head because it is an epic match, and I can go on and on and on. And Bret Hart in himself, he fights his brother to start the pay-per-view, then he ends with they had the dual deal, and then Luger fights Yokozuna, and just great wrestling matches that somewhat is lacking today. There are some great wrestlers, but the Chris Benoit's, those type of matches that are just epic in my mind, that today I'm like, all right, great point you made. Am I missing it, or am I just not as focused and ingrained being a 35-year-old guy? Good point. I don't know the answer to that, but for me, I just hope it continues to grow. And I some of the things that they've come on TV doing, I think they're aware that they got to up their game. And I'm real interested in the next 2 months. So what happens with WrestleMania and post? Is it going to be a big shakeup and they start to grow the brand again and develop some of these guys that have really, really good talents in the ring? So a Finn Balor, right? Great wrestler, and I think he could be big time. Are they going to grow him? Guys like that is what I'm interested in.
I have very little faith that they'll do anything right, to be perfectly honest. But I don't know. I look at it this way. It's so hard to invest in these storylines. And
right.
When you were younger, I don't know. The matches, they felt more, not just like the title matches. They created like a reasoning, even if it was like something as silly as, and again, this goes back to like, maybe it's just because I was 10 years old, 11 years old, and like now you're just 35, like what the hell, who cares? But like, even as simple as, I'm just trying to think of an off the top of the head example, like stealing like Tatanka's like feathers.
Right.
And then they fight for them. I don't know. Like, it wasn't for a title, but it just felt like, now you have this WrestleMania card. There'll be like 15 matches. Even there's a ton of titles. Majority of them mean nothing. But it doesn't feel like you're invested. Like, honestly, obviously in that main event, I feel invested in. Obviously in like Kofi, they've made us feel invested in. But, the one thing, for a shit as like Vince Russo that wrestling, wants to put on him, he did such a great job of like, it just felt like there was everything kind of mattered throughout the show. Like you had like all those hours and everyone sort of had their own storyline and everyone was sort of like fighting, for something. And just because it wasn't for a title, they still made things feel important.
100%.
Now it just feels like they're wasting time. Now, again, I say this, but come Sunday night, like your little guy is fully enthralled in some of these things that we're just maybe too jaded to buy into. I don't know. You're somewhere in the middle there, but I don't know.
Well, and we'll get into. I'm going to get into our top 5 moments, next. But you're right. So you could watch a Jake the Snake Roberts. So for me, the snake part of it was intriguing. A Rick the Model Martel and Mr. Perfect and Demolition versus Legion of Doom and whether it was for a title or not, you're ingrained, right? You love that stuff, and it was a great match or whatever. There was no, and you're right. I'm not 10 today to go back and see it. Honestly, and before we get into kind of top moments and roll into the Masters, I've been way more impressed, especially the big ones. Like I'm more amped to see what happens tomorrow night than the full card Sunday, because I've been thoroughly impressed with a lot of the NXT cards. Like damn good. Like when Bobby Roode was there, I was like, this dude's fucking phenomenal. And then he gets to WWE, and I'm like, he's just a guy right now. Like I'm like, when that music hit the deal at NXT, I'm like, I'm on the edge of my seat. And this is as a 34-year-old, right? This ain't 10. Those cards have been phenomenal. I'm like, all right, so what the fuck is missing from this show to that show? Like it's the same fucking organization. So where are we missing the boat here that we can't put this on the main card? Because not many people are going to go watch NXT and SummerSlam, Royal Rumble on the same weekend. So what do we? I don't get it, because they're the same organization, unless there's a pissing contest, which we wouldn't know about, between Triple H, Vince McMahon, blah blah blah. But I know it's there because I see it in those cards, and I don't watch that enough, and I don't have to, because when I watch it, I know the storyline, I know the power, I know the NXT, and it gives me hope, I guess, as a lifetime WWE fan.
But I honestly don't have an answer. It's 5 matches. It's easy to get involved. It's easy to be invested in a card that small. They make the stories feel important. But I'll be honest with you, I think it all comes down to the fact that they only do like how many shows they do a year, the takeovers, 4 or 5. They just follow the big events. Yep. So they build them up, and it feels more like when we were younger. It's easier to get invested because they do a better job.
100%.
And they don't have to fill 3 hours of TV a week, or you include SmackDown, the 5 hours. It's a completely different, animal. And it feels like they go to those Monday Night Raws, like those writing teams and Vince, like just trying to get to tomorrow.
The next day, yep. I agree.
Like there's, I don't know, how do we just get to tomorrow? And they haven't figured out the magic formula in spacing out the programs and when to sort of, to get you super, super excited.
And we didn't talk at all as far as, so we may cross over a little bit, but, as we begin to wrap up, this first episode, give me, we'll go back and forth here, but, top 5 moments off the top of your head. It can be a match. It can be a moment in the whatever it is. And I wrote out my 5. And I'll kind of work a little bit backwards. None of these are ranked in any certain way. Probably, I mean, without doubt, we kind of hit already. Someone said, "What's your first moment of wrestling?" It's Hogan versus Warrior. April 1990. I was 6 years old. And that whole pay-per-view, WrestleMania 6, I know it inside and out, and it by far, ingrains. I mean, you go back today and you watch the Hogan Warrior match. Was it the best of the best, athleticism? And no, but at the time as a 6-year-old, it's ingrained in my brain. I absolutely love it. What's one that pops to your head immediately?
Immediately, I mean, that would sort of be right there. Warrior is I think like the linchpin in a lot of this, but Savage's retirement match at Mania 7 was one that is with me forever, I think.
And great match, and obviously a continued. WrestleManias rarely have been terrible by any means, and a lot of these are going to be based around WrestleMania, as it should be. My second moment that pops in my head, a lot of it has to do with, Jim Ross and his Boomer Sooner love and Oklahoma Boy, and I've read his books and listen. I mean, he's to me, there will never be another Jim Ross on the mic. Nobody better at calling a match. Not even close. Not even in the ballpark. But Mankind, Hell in a Cell 1998, which most people don't realize it was a King of the Ring, but that as a kid, as a 15-year-old, just on pins and needles and going, did this motherfucker just die? Like, did I just see him? Like, you can't fake jumping off that fucking ring onto a table that high. I mean, off the cage, right? And so, and we've seen the story since then, and you hear about what he went through, and it was just unreal. I assume you watched it, if not live, you've seen it many times, but great moment in my wrestling career just for what it was at that time, and especially being a huge Undertaker fan.
Yeah, that was that could be number one on a lot of people. For me, Mania 18, Rock and Hogan. Again, back at the Sky Dome. They didn't expect the Sky Dome to react like it did, but Toronto is Hulkamania country, man.
Yep.
All those shows at Maple Leaf Gardens, everyone came there for Hulk that night, and yeah, and then to even hear, did they like switch the ending? Like,
yeah.
I was like, no, they're doing this, like, even without. I don't know whether Vince gave them approval to do it or it just happened, but yeah, that was the boss. That was my moment.
Yeah, and that was prime year college for me, and definitely a surreal moment. Definitely, one of those moments you remember forever. Another moment that I won't forget and still don't to this day. I assume probably high on your mind is the Montreal Screwjob, right? Survivor Series 1997. At the time, did you know what was going on, or did you it was just, we're 14, 15, 16, whatever we are type deals? Hindsight, obviously we learned a lot about it, but that moment ingrained in wrestling history definitely is there, right?
Yeah. And I love that WWE piece where they had that like rivalries DVD.
Yep.
Where they had sit down. Yeah, I don't know. I look at that. People might be surprised with my answer, but if Brett wasn't really gonna do business, then I don't know, man. Like, looking back on it older, like his whole thing, you can't pin me. I'm not gonna lose in Canada.
Right.
I'm like Canadian. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't understand. This guy's like gonna go to another company. Like,
right.
Look at it from their lens. Like, obviously, did they do Brett dirty? Yeah, but like, I don't know, man. The guy wasn't like doing anything, and he was leaving.
Right. No, I
They're
mean,
like, no, you got to drop it on the pay-per-view to the next big star. Like, he wasn't doing business. He wasn't doing business. The same way that, the rumors were that, like, Undertaker was waiting behind the curtains at WrestleMania 14 in case Michaels wasn't going to do business for Stone Cold, and Tyson, whatever. You got to do business. So, looking back on it, I'm less favorable to Brett in that story, with all the facts, to be perfectly honest.
no, 100%. And then one of my moments, which was not a great moment, which is right off of the spinoff of that, is I was watching when Owen Hart died. Was watching that pay-per-view.
Yes.
Crazy moment, because you and I have watched many wrestling shows, and probably I give Jim Ross to this day a ton of credit for how he handled it, because he made me quickly realize, like, this isn't a fucking joke, right? Like, there was a while I'm still thinking, is this a joke? Like, is this the storyline, right? I was old enough at that point to know storylines and stuff like that, and I could see it in his eyes when I knew the first time, like, this isn't, like, something's bad happened, right? And Owen probably goes unnoticed, was one of the best. Well, I mean, very, very, very good wrestler in the ring. Very misused at times in the WWE. Why he was even the fucking Blue Blazer, God knows. I mean, there's if and nuts, candies. I mean, you never know what happened. Yeah, but
that him being the Blue Blazer is literally one of the only memories I have of WrestleMania 5 that I can remember. Like, because you're like a little guy. Of the guy in like the blue superhero costume. Yeah, I don't know. That's all just. I remember that night well, and I just remember. Oh, do you have any concept, Gup, of like what mini sticks are?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just being, because however old we were, they're still like old enough to be in someone else's parents' basement, like just fucking having mini sticks tournaments, watching the pay-per-view, and that just like put the whole night like. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a good memory, but it definitely stills. I remember it. It was crazy. I mentioned it earlier, but probably one of I'm going to ask you one of my favorite matches to this day, and it wasn't maybe artistic. It was just, for whatever reason in the moment, if someone just goes, name me a top match, one that comes to mind without doubt is Shawn Michaels versus Ramon, WrestleMania 10 ladder match. To this day, still my favorite ladder match of all time. Is there a match that just pops in your head? Doesn't have to be like the greatest wrestling, but for whatever reason, that just a WrestleMania moment match, or any match at all, but WrestleMania week, if you have one that pops in your head.
Two of them. For starters, that same night, but Brett and Owen
kicked off the show. Yep.
That match is freaking amazing.
Phenomenal.
Amazing. And then the match that kind of, because we both spoke about it, we had that sort of like cooling off period with wrestling. Like in my later years, or went to college, I didn't really care. I didn't really watch it like you, like every year, order the Rumble, order Mania, but didn't really like give a shit about anything. But the thing that got the moment that like kind of brought me back in was the Taker Shawn Mania match, the first one. That was just like the net, like they're still fucking rocking it, and I'm still in, I guess. So let's go, buckle up.
I mean, the Undertaker entrances in its own have been some of the most epic, moments of my life watching wrestling. When you hear that gong, I mean, it still will put you. I mean, his match when he left his stuff in the ring and walk. I mean, that little tiny piece of your heart, for me goes. I mean, Undertaker was a man for me. I mean, the storytelling, what he did, and he comes in. He had failed many times with many characters. Even through WCW, and he comes in Survivor Series 1991, 92-ish, I believe, and then WrestleMania 9 was his first WrestleMania, out in Vegas outdoors, and his mystique, I don't know if it'll ever be duped again or close to. And then his longevity has obviously been crazy. But even to this day, I mean, if he came out tomorrow, I mean, Sunday, and that music went off for whatever reason, there's a part of you that would perk up. No difference. The only thing that I put close to it is when that glass breaks, right? When that glass breaks, and when I was at Wrestlemania at AT&T Stadium, I mean, skin crawled and goosebumps when he came out with The Rock. I mean, The Rock's music is there, and I'm a big Rock guy. I wasn't the biggest like some, but when that glass broke in that arena at AT&T, it was the loudest moment I've ever been anywhere in my life at a show. It was, and I lost it. I still have the tape on my iPhone, but unbelievable moment in my life. And it's moments like that makes, me wanting, I don't want a wrestling show per se, but wanting to put something into it because it is passion to me. I love it. The history, I can go on for 20 years talking about wrestling and what it means to me, and then all the other things we put on at night. But is there one thing like I just talked about that always gets you going, whether if you go back and watch it old school or even today?
Well, the glass shattering, I guess, always like literally, I'm ready to run through a tunnel in that glass shatter every single time. I don't know. I think I brought it up earlier. Like, I don't know. It's probably like the Jannetty Michaels thing.
Oh, yep.
Because to me, like, I was as into like storylines as much more than I was into like the actual matches.
1,000%. Yeah. And that's
the
what
way that they set up, the interest in the matches was what always got me. Than the actual matches themselves. So.
100%. My mom still has pictures of me. Because of being down here in the South, we did get to watch the Midwest, so the Rock and Roll Express, which I know you're probably familiar with now.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that I was them at 5, right? I was, me and my cousin were the Rock and Roll Express, and those matches were intriguing. The free birds and stuff like that was all good. To wrap up the wrestling part, and then we're going to just hit in on the Masters and all that, but I know you heard about, we talked, I even think you and Mayo discussed a little bit, but give me your thoughts on the John Oliver piece, and then tying in with the future of WWE, just a whatever 1 minute synopsis of what you thought about it or him and what he said, and then tie into the future of WWE in your mind.
Listen, I enjoy wrestling. I guess if I had to vote yes or no, like, I back the McMahon family. They entertain me. But I have no issue seeing anybody call them out and bring them to task or put them on blast. I have no issue with that. And a lot of things they deserve, a lot of criticism. And in many ways, I could see why people probably consider them an abhorrent company. With that and the Saudi Arabia, stuff. And there's a lot of things. But I don't know, it's not gonna, stop me. But I've got nothing against John Oliver putting them on blast. And it's quite comical to think that those guys aren't, covered like they should be, and they put themselves out there, and the wording of the contracts give them no, real rights or, like just anything. They always feel like they got to be back out there. I don't know. I think the future of the company is in no problem, and it's exciting to see other companies get a leg up. But I assume at some point Vince will do all he can to squash them as well.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me. I still get confused. I've watched it 2 or 3 times. I don't know if he's a wrestling fan. I think he is. I don't think he was being facetious. But his points were definitely well made. And I think maybe something will come out of it in the way that they aren't true 1099 contract employees. I agree 100% with you. I had no issues with it in general. Obviously I think, some of the guys in the industry that came out and kind of talked about, especially ones that have left, since then, it was intriguing to kind of see their interaction and what they believe or don't believe. I I think the next 2 to 3 months are pretty big for the WWE. And maybe I just said it every time around WrestleMania, but I think not only for that, but think of anything. We talk about golf in the green zone, and I know Mayo's talked about it for a while, or the red zone, or we are now in an industry, and it's only going to get worse with true younger millennial generation. I'm technically on the edge of that, but their time in capturing them is going to be tighter and tighter on, you got to attract them, or they're going to, I mean, there's too many distractions. There's too many ways to watch shit. There's too many streaming opportunities or other areas that they think they can be productive in than to sit down and watch a 3-hour wrestling show on Monday night, a 2-hour wrestling show on Tuesday night. I mean, you have to be entertaining and grasp people to keep it going. And I think they realized that in some of their live gates going down for the first time in forever, right? They've always just had that core people. And I think they're finally seeing that even the core people, if they don't have kids or they just get tired of spending the money going out there, and I think they're going to have to wake up and do something. And I'm real
nothing
interested.
Feels special, right? It's all overexposed. Nothing feels special anymore. But you could say that about life in general, like in terms of like what lives up to the hype, in terms of like commercialism or
I mean,
that's being sold to us. So I don't know. A lot of
even fights, UFC fights are good, bad. Boxing, big build up, terrible. Some of the best fights in the world are on the on a Friday night, HBO special. It's not even on pay-per-view, right? It's timing and build up and let down and anticipation of it all. With that, one of the biggest buildups in our life in this weekend, and I know we're about to get knee deep in the Masters, non-betting, non-anything, just pure moments, just your top 2 moments of the Masters that pop in your head just right off the bat when you think of the Masters. Not in our world, but truly watching it, guys playing it, guys whatever. What are the first 2 that pop in your head?
Just Tiger, man. Honestly, Tiger winning that first one, breaking those records and just like obliterating it, and like sitting there with my dad, who's old enough to have seen all the guys. My dad's like over 75, so he's watched a lot of the guys that compare him to.
Yep.
My dad's loved golf forever as well. It's like he's literally feels like he's watching someone better than anyone he's ever seen before. And then so the first Masters,
yep,
and then in college, man, just being with like just a handful of guys when he made that chip,
yep,
that room erupted like the Maple Leafs scored like a playoff overtime goal, like that. You couldn't, like, that was it's kind of like a loss for words. And then I guess after that it would be okay, fine, and then betting, it would be Jordan's double drink.
Yeah, at that point, when did you think Willett was live? I mean, you had True Serum at the turn. You had to think it was fucking over.
Man, over. I was like probably like watching it, like wishing I was just going to bed, like put a movie on.
Yeah,
because not that I don't love the Masters or don't respect Jordan, even though I respect Jordan, regardless of other things I may say. I obviously respect the guy. It was over.
Sure.
Like I didn't really care to see him win again, but it was over. He was up. Someone sent me the screenshot today. Like he was up 5. He was up, or not today, but earlier this week it was going around. He was -7. Danny was -2. Like what the hell happened? It didn't really feel real. Maybe in the first drink, it kind of felt like, okay, maybe there's a big number, but not till the second drink did it feel like, oh my God.
Did you know what the impact of Willett winning was going to do for? And I hesitate because I don't think that one bet makes you or Mayo. Hindsight,
no, it kind of did.
No, I mean it did at the time, and may not be where you were because of that or whatnot.
Oh, but I don't. That you know what? You're right. That probably gives not enough credit to like Pat.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he's coming on Monday. If Willett loses by 3 and still gets second, which would still be a hell of a call, and I know him, he probably each weighed it and would have still made money. Like you're still going to have momentum and go on with it. But was there a point when you were like, I can't believe I just nailed that. So my best hit ever, not outright odds wise. I've hit, last year I had Keegan at the deal 130 to 1 or something like that. But 2 years ago I bet Justin Thomas in January to win the PGA Championship that was in August, and he was 80 to 1, right? And it was kind of my first year that I'd done a full year guess and analysis of each major, pulling in data, and I was like, man, he could really win the PGA Championship, and 80 to 1 is asinine for something of his level. And then when it hit, obviously I had the people saying, you didn't fucking release it. I'm like, whatever, go look on the fucking Twitter. You can check it yourself. But the true fans knew it was something I called many months ago. But yours was even a level up because JT's elite, but 80 to 1 was still 80 to 1, and calling it 8 months early is still impressive. But did you know that night, like, man, we did something special calling Will it? Or was it like the post tweets and all that? Or, I mean, when did you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting like way too much credit for like just getting really lucky. And that's what, like, every week we do this golf tournament things and we try to pick winners. Like, we're trying to guess who the luckiest guy is. It helped. I think it really helped. It was like at the start, I think it was the first year we did the show full time, and we kind of talked about it from the first episode on. So it was kind of like this credibility boost. If you just thought we were a couple of like mucks, like, I guess it just gave us some credibility that we've had.
No, I'll tell you, I respect it.
And I'll say this: there's still people that'll hit me up. I'll do like a radio hit here in like Canada, and then someone will like, because Twitter's a cesspool.
Sure.
Will be like, you still like have this guy on because he called Willett like X years ago. I was like, that's me, bud. Like,
well, I respect the answer because you're dead right. It's nothing about that was any different than what you did last year or this year or it hit right. But your process led to it, and it was a big time moment. And today you just go back to the right process, and you're hoping you find a couple of the guys this week or for the Masters or for the Valera. I mean, I'm glad you didn't say, well, yeah, I was a fucking genius. I'm glad I nailed it 4 months earlier, because that to me would have been less authentic than what you answered. And
come on, man. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. That's like telling you, like that number on the roulette wheel. To me, like, betting golf is like you're just playing your own version of roulette spins.
I had a guy today. He goes, Stallings is coming through 12, and he got to 5 under. And I was like, man, I was like, yes. And the guy, one of the guys with me goes, hey, he had Stallings at 80 to 1. And the guy goes, how the hell did you fall on Stallings at 80 to 1? And like you said, you just get lucky on a few of the guys you picked for first round leader, and he was one of them, right? He didn't win it, but I had a chance, and I know it's late on your end, so I want to wrap up with two things. Who's your prediction to win the Masters as of now? Not betting, not value, just who do you think's going to win it? It had nothing to do with, putting money on it or any units or anything like that. Just who do you think's going to win the Masters?
Dustin Johnson.
And funny enough, I think that's going to be a contrarian pick. I don't think a lot of people are going to go there because of, kind of his history and.
But doesn't he have a pretty good history there? Hasn't he gone out late last few years?
No, he hasn't. I mean, people think he's in bad form right now, and I'm like, the dude's fucking made like 19 top fives in a row. I mean, perception and reality with him is so funny, and you nailed it early when you talked about having to defend, does he suck? And I'm like, WGC, right, Mexico, I couldn't believe when I ran my models Wednesday that I was seeing 12, 13 type percent ownership at a WGC with Johnson. And I was like, all right, I'm all in. And I went like all in DraftKings with him. Maybe not 100% because I don't do that, and I won a shit ton that week, right? And I'm like, people like, really? It's DJ. And I'm a big DJ fan. That's kind of my guy right now, other than my loves, Neiman, Armour, and all that. But for a big guy, DJ's my guy right now. And with Tiger is the asterisk, right? Tiger's all our guys. We move that to the side when we can have a conversation. But the amount of respect, I know he's not engaged Meaning, if he had the will and desire and focus of Tiger, he probably could be the best golfer of all time. His talent level is to that. He just doesn't give a shit, or don't give a fuck is kind of his nickname, and that's there a lot. But talent wise, he's there. He can win any tournament he wants, any given week he shows up. And not many guys can say that.
And you want to know something? My second pick would be your guy who gives too many fucks.
Yep.
And that's wrong. So,
Yep.
those would be the guy. Rom's been there, 2-3 times. He's gone out late on Sunday. Two of them? Or the last two?
Last year for sure. Yep.
Yeah. So wasn't he out with Ricky on Sunday last year?
I believe so. Yeah, and they both.
And it was Ramon, and it was Rory and Reed.
Yeah.
So those would be. Betting is a bit of a different animal this year, but
sure.
I've said this. I don't think. I mean, the Masters gets hype every year, but I don't think in this era of post. I'll almost say of post elite Tiger Woods, that there have been this many great players, but this many great players playing as well as they are, from Rory to Dustin to Rahm to Rose. I got to throw Ricky in there. Molinari.
Casey. Casey's in fire. Kuchar. Hell, I watched Kuchar today on fire.
Justin Thomas, yes, but I'm even just talking about, and Kuchar, I don't mean to disrespect him or anything, but I'm just talking about guys ranked inside the top 10 in the world.
Yep.
The majority of them are playing fantastic, are playing really well. This many guys. So I'm,
regardless what anybody says, at this track, and we saw a little bit of flashes today, but Jordan can show up and win here. And I'm not a Jordan fan. Anybody they know that, but I wouldn't say I'm not a fan. At this right now, I wouldn't pick him, but can he show up and win next week? Absolutely, he can.
Yeah,
no doubt in my mind, he can. And mine was Rahm, and then my second guy I'm kind of fiddling with is either Fowler, your guy, or kind of that. And I think you and Mayo may already be on him, but a guy I've loved for a while, and I'll go back to him probably, but I'm definitely think he can win here is Matsu, Hideki. I really like him.
If you're talking bets, that is the only bet I have in is Matsuyama at 40-1. Normally this time of year, I feel like I've got 4 or 5 bets in already. I've been making them since football season, but I never know. I never really got a vibe. Nothing really jumped at me. I don't know what to say, but Matsuyama was the bet that I made. I've bet him here at shorter numbers in the past. His game is really on point. I mean, this guy could just putt 24th in the field, man. We're going to be right there. He might win by 2 strokes if he putts by just 24th or top 20, but we'll be right there. I've been sucked in again. I don't know whether it's his Sunday afternoon going out with no pressure in some of these bigger tournaments that just sucks me back in, but I'm sucked in. It's a big ask. It's a big ask for a guy that could struggle with the 6-footer. I know it's a big ask, but I do believe it. I believe it.
I like that he's getting more rounds at this place, and I think he can do it. And the last 2 things I'll ask you, and then we'll close it up, is does Brock drop the title Sunday? And does Kofi win?
Okay. I just don't think that they can give us all 3 of Kofi, Becky, and Seth. I just feel like they'll want to switch something up, do something weird. So odd man out, I say Brock holds the title. And maybe they'll switch it in Saudi Arabia, which they tried to do last year, but they decided not to. I think they might actually pull that move this year.
I'm convinced he's going to drop it and leave. I think he's going to move. Whatever he's going to do, is he going to go fight? What's his name? I don't know.
But how shocked would you be? Are you surprised if you find out the Tuesday after WrestleMania that he just signed a new 2-year deal? Because isn't that also right in their
No, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I think it'd be a horrendous move because I honestly think
You just want him off the show, right? He kills the show.
No, I think he's a cancer. I think the guys despise it. I think the locker room can't stand it, and I think it hurts the overall culture. And I'm talking from a business standpoint. So from a guy that runs a business, not only GupsCorner but my real career, like I feel it hurts that business if he continues on, unless he's going to have a contract that engages him to be active. Because otherwise, if you don't have that championship mean anything, and that's where I think it's the biggest crutch to them right now is you're just like, all right, he's going to keep it. He's going to show up. Then he's going to have a SummerSlam push, and he's still going to keep it, and he's going to show up. And I think people lose interest on will the title drop. And it's one reason why I think SmackDown probably is a little more enticing than Raw at times because there is a potential for it. But can we get them all? I don't think so. I agree with you. I think they're ignorant if they don't put over Kofi. I think it's a spot in the time for them to put a breath air in the industry, and I think Kofi can do it. So I think they need to do that. And if that
means they know that, I trust them. Well, earlier I said I don't trust them to do anything right, actually, but they can't be that dumb to not put it on Kofi and then end the show with Becky. They like to send the people that fly from all over the world home happy. They do,
100%.
And it's sometime. I mean, what? Listen, how long is the show gonna be, Gup?
I mean, that's my biggest fault with WrestleMania is that it's gotten. I mean, no one has. Hell, I don't have time to sit 7 hours.
Somebody joked that it would be like not in a million years would I sit down and watch back to back like Lord of the Flies movies. Like, you couldn't pay me to fucking do that. You couldn't pay me to do it. But that's essentially with what you're gonna do on Sunday in terms of time.
Yeah, and unfortunately for guys like us, like I got a shit ton of content to get ready, right? And I have a real career, so I can't do it. I have to get it done before I go to work on Monday morning. And Mayo works his ass off, so it's definitely not a dig at him. But that's his career, so he has a little more like. But when I'm working on GupsCorner, then I got to wake up and go help run a business as well. So to spend 8 hours watching WrestleMania and then try to get ready for the Masters, it is very difficult. I 100% agree with you. I I love you like a brother. I appreciate it. I know this went long.
No,
I can't wait.
Yeah,
and it definitely intentions moving forward will be, the whole first probably 45 minutes hour, we don't have to rehash. I wanted to get a nice foundation built. That's who I'm about. That's how I built the GupsCorner brand. And I look forward to the next one with you. I appreciate it so much that you took the time out to come and do this with me. I know the next 10 days for us is going to be exciting, fun, stressful at times, emotional-ish at times, but it's a mecca of us. Other than, we both are grounded in the football world, and the Super Bowl is a Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. But outside of that, it doesn't get much better. And for me, this time of the year is almost as outdone anything that football does for me, soup to nuts type of deal. And so for you to take the time on a Thursday night, I appreciate it. And know what I think of you and treat you like a fan. I consider you family, and I appreciate Mayo and everything he's done and you guys have done for the industry, and everybody from GupsCorner, thinks that of you guys.
No, anytime, bud. Gup, I'm forever in your corner, bud. So I'm down, and yeah, it's a great time of year. I'm excited. This is a little weird, like the super niche crossover that hopefully we get. But yeah, and going forward, we'll hit the ground running. We won't have to sort of spend all that time in the past going forward.
100%, and looking forward to joining Mayo on Tuesday. So tell everybody, just so that they know, where do they find you, y'all shows, on any given week, on the golf side.
Yeah, no, at G Fienberg 17 on Twitter. That's Fienberg. I do the show with Pat. Pat Mayo Experience on DraftKings. We'll put that out. Our show, you know what? When WrestleMania just about wraps up, Pat might be dropping it because we're gonna be recording on Sunday. So that'll be, I don't know, you wake up for work on Monday,
Nice.
So that show should already have dropped, and I had to make sure, Pat, I'm okay to record during the Valero Sunday, but I got to be home for the mains, brother.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And to give respect to Pat, you can find, if you don't, God, I'm sure anybody listening to this does, he's at the PME. Anything on any social media, you can find those guys at the Pat Mayo Experience, as Geoff said. First class, ran great shows by all of them. Looking forward to hearing you guys. I am going to be on Pat's show Tuesday, and definitely looking forward to that. Crossover again, and he's the OG in the industry. So anytime I get an invite, and to especially be invited on what is our Super Bowl of the season was a very humbling moment for me, and kind of felt rewarded to be on his show, and hope he knows how much I appreciate it, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, no, man, that's a big deal. That Tuesday major week ownership show. I mean, he trusts you, and you got your formula to come up with your ownership projections, and that just shows you that he believes in it, and your results speak for themselves.
I appreciate it, and I know we're going to talk a lot over the weekend. Good luck with the Masters week, and we'll have fun going back and forth during WrestleMania, and I'm sure we'll talk next week as well during the Masters and while it's all going on, and I look forward to us getting together again, and have a good night out there, brother.
Much love. All the best.
All
right. Go Matsu.
Right. Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah.